Welcome to another episode of Distory. My name is Kirk from walruscarp.com, and this evening we are going to close out Enchanted Wish. So we're going to go back onto our Snow White refurbed attraction over in Disneyland so that we can make way to go to Disney World next week. With me, as always, is the amazing author, the well-researched, and of course, fantastically brilliant Kate, the Disney Cicerone. Kate, how are we doing this evening?
Hi, yeah, I'm doing really good. It's been a really wonderful week off with my family on vacation, and so I'm feeling rested and recharged and ready to go through the rest of this attraction because there's some really interesting backstories that we can hear about in this one with what we've got left to go. So where we left off last time was we had just finished the mine with the dwarves, which was more of an active mine. Remember, this is the one where they said they wanted to bring more life back into the mine. They wanted it to be active and show the dwarves actually in it, because the previous version in Snow White Scary Adventures, there had been no activity. It's like it had been abandoned for a long time. So they made it more active. We heard the hi-ho song for the first time ever in this attraction. And we saw all the beautiful diamonds in the mine, including Dopey. Heard some backstories of that. And then Kirk got really upset about the gems all being cut.
First of all, listen, I was Josh Safdie's muse when he wrote Uncut Gems. So as a result, I think it's not fair. No, dude, honestly, why on earth are they cut? They're in the rocks. All right, I'm done.
It's fair. It's a
fair
thing
argument.
To be pet peeved about, yes.
Look at that, dude. They don't have to do any work. They're probably already GIA certified too, you know? You just sell them immediately.
So now what we're going to do is we're going to head around the corner out of the mine and into this section that is actually pretty similar to how it used to be, except the vault itself, you can see the diamonds are actually kind of like sparkling through the door. Which is new for this attraction of Snow White's Enchanted Wish. Before that, it was just a kind of a painted flat vault, and now you actually see all of the diamonds being stored in the vault, which is really fun, I think.
Is that where a million diamonds shine? No, I'm serious. I don't know.
Well, in the mine. They said in the mine, not necessarily the vault. So I don't know.
Again, another detail that's just fun is I did notice that they do have the keys hanging right next to the vault, of course, as Dopey likes to keep them in a safe place. So
yes, that's right. Very important. Then just to the right of them, there are the famous vultures. They look a little bit better than the Snow White and Her Adventure version, but they're the same as the Scary Adventure version. I don't think they touched these at all in the refurb.
There's no changes.
No, but going around the corner and heading towards the Queen's Chamber, I want to talk about the doors a little bit because we didn't talk about them much last time. But the doors, if you notice on the doors, there are these lion heads that are big door knockers. So yeah. I decided to delve a little bit into the history of door knockers.
Buckle up, kids. This is welcome to Bed Knobs and Broomstick.
So the lion's head itself signifies strength, pride, protection, and power, which makes sense in terms of the queen, right? We want to do strength and power in particular, and pride. I think all of those things definitely illustrate the evil queen. But in terms of door knockers, it dates all the way back to when the Greeks considered it impolite to enter a dwelling without giving a warning first. So
yeah, vampires are the same way. They have to ask permission before they can come in your house. Very polite.
So wealthier Greeks had slaves to open their front door. They were like designated slaves to open the front door. And then the slave was attached to the door by a chain, which ran through a heavy metal ring, which was securely fastened to a backplate on the door. So then the handle, which was used to knock the backplate, hence the door knocker was born. So the reason there are door knockers was because that's what the slaves were chained to, which is awful.
So horrendously awful.
Yeah, it makes me never want to have a door knocker, like, ever.
Yeah. You know what? And it's a shame because, like when I think about the Muppets Christmas story. Like, I can't enjoy Scrooge going up, and then it's like a Muppet's face, and they're like, "Oh, Scrooge."
Yeah.
Like, I can't, dude.
Yeah. I'm sorry.
Insane.
Isn't that crazy?
I mean, honestly, I just thought like iconography, pride, large, regal. I thought all those things, but I never. Oh my God.
Well, I mean, knowing that in full context, not just the lion's head, but also like the history of it, I'm like, that's actually pretty on point for an evil queen to have like prominent door knockers.
Yeah, that's awful. That's crazy.
So yeah, just a little history of door knockers for y'all. That's all I have for the doors, unless you have anything else.
Jeez, please stop talking about him and let's move on.
I have some other happier things, I promise, but that's a little history lesson for you.
This is my favorite band. They're called Two Doors Down, so we're gonna move right.
I do like Three Doors Down. Yeah.
Oh my Lord. Okay.
All right. So I think we've talked in the past about we move cinematography. So what's the word I'm looking for? Cinematically. Thank you. I'm like, what is the word I'm looking for?
We're actually going cinematographically.
We're cinematically moving into the scene where we see the long shot, and then we get closer when we do and then once we're in a close up is when we get the jump scare, right? But they did add and change a few things to this scene. I don't know if you've noticed any of these things, Kirk. I don't want to steal your thunder.
No, the big things that I noticed are lots of projection mapping, which never occurred before, because there's not that much that happens with the evil queen and the witch. But around the mirror, especially, there's this massive transformation because of that projection mapping that makes it really look like the magic mirror is glowing and creating this transformation.
Yeah, they have this little lightning effect around it as well. But there is something they added specifically, that there's a new table that they added to the scene for Snow White's Enchanted Wish that is on this side.
Oh, this thing? This thing over to the right?
Yep, that didn't exist
candle?
before. Mm-hmm. So it has a spilled glass of what I'm assuming is some sort of potion, which would then make sense for her transforming, like she just drank the potion, and that's why she transforms. So it's actually adding to the storytelling to make it more like the movie.
Well, usually when I drink a potion and it's so aghast that I slam it on the table, I usually make my way over to the mirror and I look at myself and I go, oh, you know what? I do look good. And then I turn into a witch.
But this is what that area looked like before. You can see that there's no table there at all.
Here, hang on, let me give you a table.
There's a candle, an hourglass, and a book, which I'm assuming is some sort of book of potions or spells or whatnot. But I don't.
Random fun fact about candles: did you know back in the day they used to put nails in candles, and as it would melt down, the nails would slam onto like a metal plate below, and they used that as like alarm clocks back in the day, when they knew what the burn rate of the candle was.
Seriously?
So yeah. I don't
remember that.
I'm pretty sure it's colonial times when they started doing that. So this predates all of that. But yeah, I'm just staring at this thing and the wax melting like precariously. It just reminds me of that.
That's crazy. I'd never heard that before. It seems dangerous though to sleep with a candle lit.
It was colonial times, bro. I'm pretty sure they didn't worry about anything. They thought that like
your candle
smells
light
would make you sick. So yeah.
Other than that, I did have a note that they chose to keep this queen to witch transition effect because guests loved it so much. So when they
it's amazing.
Yeah, when they were debating what they were going to change for Snow White's Enchanted Wish, they did decide to keep this scene in there because it was such a huge favorite of the guests that they didn't want to eliminate it. And I think there would have been outcry had they gotten rid of this effect because it's such a cool one with her turning around.
First of all, it's a practical effect. We love practical effects. And then now it's enhanced by the projection mapping with the green glow, lightning. I mean, it's just, it's like lightning strikes and then it illuminates with this green, I don't know, it's like ethereal, spiritual. And then there's also like cobwebs that kind of pop up as well.
Yeah. Do you want to take us into the next room unless you have anything else here?
Let's move it and groove it.
Okay.
So now we're moving more into kind of like her like spell area because there's a spell book on a bookcase. There's random books strewn about. There's also like a little tiny is that a crystal ball?
Oh, I have crystal ball talk.
Oh my God, please. I didn't notice the skeleton scales or the crystal ball. Now I'm going to shut up.
Okay, so let's talk about the crystal ball first. So what you can see if you look in the crystal ball is a vision of the dwarf's cottage. Okay?
Oh, no way.
Yeah, as it moves past, it goes really fast. So you have to really be on the ball and looking for it, but it is
I know you didn't mean it, but it counts.
I did look up the history of crystal balls, and I have to say, I think it's really weird that she has a crystal ball when she has a magic mirror. Like, why does she have both? Is it just so more convenient so she doesn't have to go upstairs when she's in the dungeon? Like what? Why would you have both?
Yeah, she has a line in her spell room, and that's not that weird.
But anyway, so crystal balls, of course, are usually used in fortune telling. That's their purpose. The alternate names are crystal sphere, scrying ball, a shoe or showing stone. There's just a couple different names for them, but the earliest recorded use of crystal balls for divination, known as scrying, may date back to the Celtic Druids of Gaul, Britain, and Ireland around 800 BC. So these have been around a very long time, and that's what they show up a lot in classical art. Interesting thing is that crystal gazing was a popular pastime in the Victorian era as well. Remember, Kirk, how we've talked about like Egyptology and all those kinds of things? Yeah. No, Egyptomania, and all those things, right?
Cinematic Egyptomania.
I have no words. But it was popular in the Victorian era, and it was claimed to work best when the sun is at its northernmost declination. Immediately before the appearance of a vision, the ball was said to mist up from within. So if you're going to get a vision, it had to get misty first.
I have a strong feeling that absinthe was involved.
It's possible. But yeah, that's a detail that you definitely want to look for on the left-hand side as you head into the dungeon area. But yes, you talked about the skeleton, which is a little miniature skeleton that's holding like two sides of a scale. And this was something that we saw before in Snow White Scary Adventures. We had seen this in the queue area, in that little dungeon area. This is him right here. So he just moved. That's all.
He's so cute.
He is so cute.
What do you think she's weighing in there? Like different quantities of, do you know what I mean? Like she would need to know specific measurements for her spells. Like, okay, I need 1 gram of wormwood.
Yeah, probably. It's like a measurement for the spells. And you know what's interesting is I just noticed that the hourglass is here. That's probably what moved to the table in the Queen's Chamber. And the keys right here, if you look in the picture where there's keys hanging up on the shelf there.
Yeah, those ones are gold though, where yours are more of that darker.
What if they painted them?
Metallic. Yeah, but don't they look, these ones look cartoony. They could totally be the same ones, but these look larger and bulkier and cartoonier than those ones.
That's fair.
It could be.
But at least it could be a throwback to the keys in any case. But for a dungeon, sure, it makes sense that they would be there. So anyway, those are the two things that I see there. But I think the crystal ball is one of the coolest things that I don't think anybody ever notices is there.
Well, you know what? Like I said, I think I've only been on this 5 times, and I've never, ever noticed that.
I didn't notice it until we started doing this series. This just goes by so fast.
When you're on that attraction, like this is when you're in massive switchbacks. So you're going left, right after that big turn in front of the Queen. So it's almost like this like little maze like structure at this point.
Right. Well, and you remember this is the place where they used to have the skeletons, okay?
Right.
They removed all of the skeletons from the attraction because they wanted to keep an element of suspense, but they didn't want to make it scary. So I kind of think that putting this little skeleton in this spot is a little nod to what used to be there.
Well, so I rewatched parts of Snow White, and there is one part where she comes down to go out to her boat, and she's carrying all the apples. And there is a skeleton that's like reaching out, just like it was in the old Scary Adventures. And she says, she has an iconic line that as she kicks over a bucket, she goes, "Have a drink."
Right. This guy.
Yeah, exactly.
Do you want to talk about anything else that's in that corner before we move on from that one?
No, I'm good.
They just have the poison apple book too that used to be in the queue. You can see that as well. Is sitting in that corner. So they just moved it in there and then put it on top of the shelf instead of being held by a gargoyle like it was previously.
Yeah, the only thing I can talk about is over there on the right-hand side is it reminds me of like nautical compasses, or just a globe structure. But I would think that it would be some sort of measurement device, as everything here has been a tool with a purpose or educational. So I'm not really sure exactly what that is. Maybe somebody can help us out who listens to Distory. What is that object?
All right, so let's go to the second corner. And this one, I know you recognize something that's in this. Do you want to talk about that a little bit?
Well, so gargoyles. Can we chat about gargoyles for a hot second?
Yes, let's do.
Is that what you were gonna, or is that what you're setting me up for?
I don't know. Just talk.
Just talk. Just leave me alone for a second. Yo, vacay mode. All right, so gargoyles are one of the most interesting things to me, just because they have a purpose, but then there's also like a spiritual aspect to them as well. So gargoyles were used on churches and other buildings primarily for practical and symbolic purposes. So the practical function would be water drainage, because you don't want water going down the sides of your wall. So like imagine a gutter system or rainwater coming off of a roof, and they're wanting to push it away into a drainage area. So this prevents things like erosion from the rock and the stone walls and the foundation to help, keep the structural integrity of the buildings in check. And in Gothic architecture especially, it was it made it more ornate and just made like the buttress system and arches look a lot prettier as well. So it was a decorative piece, integrated often into the designs. But then I thought this was strange. I had no idea. I thought, because I always thought it was weird that they were in churches, because I was like, why are these demonic, weird, scary faces on churches? Because churches are supposed to be places of like sanctuary, right? And like moral respite. So it's to ward off evil spirits. Gargoyles were believed to serve a protective function, warding off evil spirits and demonic forces. Their grotesque and fearsome appearance was thought to scare away malevolent entities. And some gargoyles would occasionally depict scenes from biblical stories and moral allegories. So it would give a visual reminder of the religious teachings and the consequences of sin, which I think that makes a ton of sense, especially those ones. And obviously, as things evolve, then artistically things can change. And in fact, you can actually find like gargoyles that look like pop culture pieces and stuff. But I did find some Germanic ones. I think this one looks a heck of a lot like our one in the dungeon.
Oh, so yeah.
I did my best scouring the internet to find a very similar looking gargoyle. And I think that one does a pretty good job. So.
Yeah, I have to say this particular gargoyle looks an awful lot like Bowser to me.
He does look like Bowser. And Bowser's, is he a turtle?
I don't know. He has a turtle shell.
Oh my god, yeah. I thought he's like kind of like a dragony turtle. And then I found a couple more. Again, these are all from German cathedrals, just to keep with the period time. And then I did find one that was more dragon-esque, although this looks more contemporary, or at least a redesign of an older one.
Bowser's a Koopa.
Well, the Koopas are all turtles.
I guess so.
They're all turtles, right?
I don't know.
All right.
Some of them fly, so it's hard to say.
Okay, well, they're made-up creatures, so I would just... Koopas are a fictional race of turtle-like characters in Nintendo's Mario franchise. So Bowser and his children, the Koopalings, and then, of course, Lakitu. Wait, Lakitu is a Koopa?
Yeah, I mean, I swear that it looks so much like Bowser.
Oh my gosh, hang on. Let me give you another shot of our Bowser gargoyle. He really does.
Yeah. He's got a little bigger eyes, I think.
Right.
But the snout.
Shell.
Yeah. Well, maybe the shell's just where we can't see it. It's on the other side of the wall.
Turtle-like creature. Yeah.
We're asking the important questions this evening.
These are, yes.
Do you have any more gargoyle talk? I don't want to move on too quickly.
I have no more gargoyle talk, but I do have snake hand talk.
I will say that they did change the water effect of that gargoyle. It used to be kind of like drips like actual water, and now it's kind of more like this pouring water effect into the pool. So they changed the effect.
Streaming water, or is it more like projection?
I think it's projection now. I don't think it's water. It used to be water though. Here, because I have the old one. The old one was kind of like drippy water.
Oh yeah.
And now it's streaming.
It looks, you know what it looks like? It reminds me of in Mickey and Minnie's Runaway Railway at the very end with the fountains.
Mm-hmm.
It reminds me of the way the fountains look, where it's like cascading down ribbons, but it's all projection, no actual water.
It used to look like he was drooling, and now it looks like he's like pouring water out of a straw.
Right.
All right. Do you want to tell us about snake hand talk?
Sure. So I sadly I couldn't find a specific time in history where snake hand statues. There's sometimes like religious symbols and lots of tattoos. People love getting tattoos of snakes on hands and stuff, which I think is interesting. But snakes have been long associated with evil, danger, and temptation in Western folklore, and of course in Christianity. So like with like the original sin, which I think that's where I'm kind of leaning towards. This is my hypothesis is original sin. We have a poisoned apple. The apple was given by a serpent. So that's where I'm like kind of leaning and
interesting.
You like that?
I do. Well, I hadn't made the connection with the apple too.
Yeah.
And the kind of biblical connections to that. That makes sense.
And think about that now the witch is, because the snake is a hand, her hand becomes the conveyance for the temptation of the apple. So instead of it being the snake and the serpent with Adam and Eve in the garden, it's now the witch with the apple giving it to Snow White in the cottage.
Interesting.
That's where I'm going with it.
And this was also something we saw in the dungeon back when it was Snow White's Scary Adventure. So this is another prop that moved places from one to the other.
I mean, it's still creepy and it's really cool. And it gives us, I think the one thing is they can't take all the scary out because Snow White is in imminent danger. And I do feel that the iconography of snakes, they're creepy. A hand that's just sticking out, also creepy. So I don't know. But that was my theory.
The first time I saw it, I tried to do like a reverse image search. I was like, where did they get the idea for this from?
Yeah, nothing.
Nowhere. Nothing. And so the only thing that it reminds me of, though, is it so reminds me of Rolly Crump's work. Like Museum of the Weird. It's got Museum of the Weird vibes all over it.
It totally makes sense. I mean, that's right up his wheelhouse for like freaky, weird hands and hand sconces.
And like things with scales and, weird things with hands, things with scales. That's like his vibe. So to me, it feels like if it wasn't, I was looking through all of Rolly Crump's art and I was trying to find something that was similar. And I could find a couple of these things from Museum of the Weird, but I didn't find something that looked exactly like that. But I was like, I really wish I knew if this was something that he had a hand in. Sorry. That was not intentional.
You gave yourself a lot of credit on that one.
I didn't mean to do it, so I surprised myself. Anyway, I don't really know the history behind it. Hopefully someday we will know who created that and why and where they got their inspiration from.
I think we have two really good ideas. The symbolism, which seems pretty logical, and then maybe the influence of a previous Imagineer. So
yeah, I agree. Other things that are in this corner, mostly just blacklight glowing potions and chemicals and experiments. There is one that's labeled, I'm going to say it's Quassia Amara. Is the label that's on one of the jars, and that is also known as bitterwood, which is it's a common ingredient in bitters. Also used as an insecticide and has medicinal qualities. So that's the only one that I see that's really like labeled there that I could tell. But I do have a little note from Dave Caranchi, who said, we have a blacklight superstar genius on our team who's been doing it for close to 30 years, who's Jim Crouch. He does it all over Disney parks in the world, and he oversaw the blacklight paint, so it felt like it was within the film. So that's who did all of the blacklight work for these potions to make them look like they're glowing. So thank you, Jim Crouch, for your work. Hello? Still there?
I was writing a note.
Okay. I was like...
No. You just made me think of something, so I thought that was cool. So
you're writing a note to Jim Crouch to thank him for his blacklight work. So the other things about this corner is this was where the skeleton used to be, who was reaching for the water and never quite got to it. So I have a little note from Dave that said the attraction used to be about 75% scary, 25% happy, and we've flipped that to about 60% happy and 40% suspenseful. We've taken things out that we feel were scary, seeing skeletons hanging and being tortured. Those are scary things and a message that we don't want to send. So we've removed all that. We created great show sets with special effects, still very suspenseful, still inside the dungeon, still the cool sounds, but we're not trying to scare people. We're trying to engage a sense of suspensefulness as we lead up to the poison apple. So that's why they removed the skeletons, because they decided they didn't want it to be a scary vibe. They wanted it to be more suspenseful. And I do like what they did here with it, even though we don't have the skeletons, except for the little one, anymore.
I'm going to disagree with you. I just think that this doesn't necessarily fit in this location. Like,
okay, I will agree with that.
The mixing and potions does deserve a spot, but it's almost like our last room made more sense because there was all the measurement tools, and it's like, all right, you're going to have all that stuff, and then you're going to walk away and go to this totally different area. Maybe it's because it's access to water, so that's where this makes more sense with potions, but I still feel like it's slightly askew. However, it is pretty cool seeing them showcase off some of the glassware that obviously the witch in her very iconic scene when she's creating the apple herself, which we're about to see anyway. So it's cool. I still like it. I think it's very bright. It's very vibrant. So suspenseful, not scary.
I do think it's a little bit weird that there's like the dungeon bars are still behind the potions. And the potions are sitting up on a little like table.
They're locked up, dude.
I guess. But let's move on to the third corner in this section, because all three of them are related to each other. They're all telling this story of it being the workshop in the dungeon for potion making. So the third corner has more blacklight glowing potions, but no skeleton. This is where the hanging skeleton was before. But they have some projection mapping, fire and distillation happening here. And then they also have a cup with a potion in it as well. And that, I think that is the skeleton cup from the dungeon. Oh no, it's different though. I was going to say, I think it was the one that was in the dungeon before, but this one didn't. This one still has his head, but that one has his head chopped off.
Right. Different.
Yeah.
Well, you can drink out of one. The other one is just a drinking buddy.
Was a drinking buddy.
But yeah. Well, I don't know. You can still talk to it. Might not talk back.
No.
Okay. Can we talk about this for a hot second?
Yes, please.
It's incongruent with the storytelling, because this is the scene where she's creating her poison to turn in, or she's creating her serum to turn into the witch, because it's in that goblet in the film. This glass one, that's what she drinks out of. But she's already turned into the witch in the previous scene. So,
and we saw that glass spill in the previous.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. And but this is the actual, like that physical glass one is the one that's from the film. So where the other one is just like a pewter cup that's spilled with the green liquid. This is
maybe she has multiple batches.
Maybe this is a different day. She's like, I had to try it out. Now I'm going to try it out again. You know?
That's right. That's it's smart to do that, right? To test it before the official. You know, that does go back to the original Snow White, though, not the Disney version, but the original Snow White version where she came as a witch 3 times to Snow White, right? So,
well, I think that makes more sense. Like, you know, you're not going to just let some witch lady in on the first go. She's got to at least come back and convince you.
Well, like, I think each time, remember, she gave her something different that, like, hurt her. So, but in terms of Disney's Snow White, you're right. This is not placed correctly scene-wise. Yeah. But that's true of a lot of the things in this ride. Like, we still have the witch looking, or the queen looking through the window of the dwarf's cottage, which never happened in the movie at all. So, there's still a few things that are not quite right. But maybe that's also kind of paying homage to the fact that for a long time, this ride was very not correct in terms of the movie. So
yeah. Another thing that I just think is fun is all the chemistry that goes on into the making of her spells and potions. Because I never got to play with a lot of like Bunsen burners and beakers and stuff. Like, we did some of that stuff in chemistry class, but not like a ton. And I always thought it was cool that they would show like the condensation like lines and like those bulb areas to take like gases and reliquefy them. So I don't know. I just always think that stuff's really fascinating. I don't understand it fully scientifically, so I just get excited when I can learn something new.
That is neat. I really love the projection mapping of this effect, though. It actually looks really cool. And I'm sad that you don't see it, but for like a half second.
Well, even the filling of the cup is nicely projection mapped as well. Mm-hmm. So once we turn, it'll be real quick, but you actually see it getting dripped into, which I think is pretty well done for non-liquid to look like liquid. So it's actually dripping out of this tube, and then it kind of glows big and bright and red right before you turn.
Yeah, it's a very convincing effect.
Yeah.
Even if it's not congruent with the story.
I'm convinced. Did you see this cool little skull torch over here?
Well, yeah, that was there before. So that hasn't changed.
Yeah, but they didn't take him out. They could have.
Yeah, that's true.
I think he's scary. He's not suspenseful.
Okay, so they kept some skeletons or pieces of skeletons. The little skeleton and the skeleton sconces they kept, but the rest of the skeletons, they are resting in peace now. At least we hope. All right, so moving on to the witch cauldron scene is next, which is. This has been around since the beginning, but it just keeps getting better and better with each iteration. So they have no more spider web. Remember how our friend Jim told us that the steel spider web that was in front of it was to like keep guests from grabbing the apple. So they've taken the spider web down now, so you have a clear view of the scene. And then they have projection mapping transformation of the entire rooms when the apple becomes poisonous, which is actually a really cool effect. I don't have exactly how they do it, but I did see kind of a little version of what it looks like up close with the apple. And it's almost like the outside of it kind of disappears, and then it becomes this like skull, which is pretty cool. And then it's colored, of course, with projection mapping.
I heard another reason why they removed the spider webs is because she was walking into spider webs and somebody had to leave a message and call her back. But that's probably just a likely story.
Oh, I loved that album so much. Tragic Kingdom.
Oh my God, it's an amazing album. Incredible.
So here's what you can see up close with this apple. Do you want to show them what happens when you get closer in the transformation of the room?
Yeah, let's let this all the way play through. So you get the lighting effects, and boom, the whole cauldron and the whole room lights up. It's like a wave or a rush of energy is coming out of that cauldron once the apple gets dipped. So let's see that once more because it happens so fast, but it is very bright. It's super saturated, so the coloration just looks fantastic of this like evil spirit of green. Remember, like Disney always symbolically will use green for evil spirits. You see it all the time used in all of the films. So,
That's true. I hadn't really thought of that, but
really?
That is true.
Dude, think about the friends on the other side. What color are they?
Yeah, they're green. Mm-hmm. Well, and I wonder if that's also with Mary Blair, if she's used that too, to denote that.
How about when Ursula takes Ariel's voice?
Yeah.
What color is that?
Yeah. Lots of green.
How about Maleficent? Like everything with Maleficent and Maleficent dragons, flames. They're not red flames. They're like green.
Yeah, I think it's more magic evil.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's not like real evil. It's not like he's walking around with like a green knife going like, hey, look. Yeah, magic evil.
Yeah. I mean, I'm sure I've thought about it in the past. It's not recently and not in the context of this particular room, but that makes sense that it would be colored that way. Do you have anything else for this room? I think that's all that's changed from my perspective of...
No, I think the room was fantastic before, and they just barely had to alter with, again, projection mapping is the big overarching change that I think enhances sets that already existed and brings new life to them, because you're adding texture and movement to things that were static.
Yeah, I agree. So shall we move on to the Shattering mirror scene, which is just around the corner?
I have a lot of bad luck after this.
If you remember, this little spot used to be the tunnel where our good friend the witch would pop out with a juicy apple.
What would she sound like again?
I'm not gonna say it. But juicy, I don't remember what she says. I'm a juicy apple. Juicy apple.
It's always my goal to get you to do one voice an episode.
So I have a note from Dave. It says, one key scene we were missing was Snow White biting the apple. If you don't know the story, and a lot of young kids have not seen the movie, all you see is the witch with the apple. Well, okay, then what happened? So we have another feature that was really important that we add, and that is why you see Snow White actually biting the apple, and then of course going into her deep sleep or whatever. So that's why they have that scene there. And of course they didn't want to make it scary anymore, so they removed one of the most horrifying jump scares of the entire attraction, which is this witch in a boat. You know what, Kirk, though, when this mirror shatters, you know what it reminds me of?
What does it remind you of?
The Twilight Zone, when the mirror shatters. You know, like in the intro of the Twilight Zone, how the mirror shatters because of sound, dimension of sound, and it shatters. So I wonder if that was an influence for this. I know it's partially just the magic mirror shattering and all that, but I don't know. To me, it seems like there's influences from that era. I don't know. I could just be drawing a connection that's not there, but that's what it reminded me of.
Okay.
What?
Dude, hey man, why not? What do I know? I didn't design the thing.
What do I know?
Yeah, I don't live short. I like it. Hey, that's where it came from. Tower Terror, baby.
I don't know if there's a connection, but I think it's interesting that it could have been influenced by that.
Listen, here's the fun fact of this is that we don't have a complete picture, so why not take some elaborate strategic guesses?
Yeah,
because you can
speculation
between those.
Yeah, just speculation, just my so you can't catch a break.
This is real, objective fact. You can fact check it, and it is real.
People are gonna come after me. Don't say that.
Who comes after you? You're fine.
People come after me all the time. Are you kidding me?
But you're right. So when you're right, it's hard for them to come after you.
It's true. Okay, so heading into this next scene, this is usually where we see all of the scary trees, right? This was the scary forest. There still are a few scary trees here, but you don't even barely notice that they're there.
Yeah, they're so far in the background of this scene that they are not important or significant.
Like they used to be the main feature reaching for you.
This is huge, though, because we're taking a scene... And this is with the Seven Dwarves and the Witch at the top. We're taking that rock boulder scene and we're moving it very, very, very far ahead in our sequencing here. Because if you look at Park Lore's old map of Scary Adventures, the Wicked Woods, the alligators, Wicked Woods, trees, cottage, stormy cliffs, boulder, that's this whole entire section. So we're moving up the boulder section way over here to trees. And that's important because then we can actually finish out the ride in the way that they wanted to kind of close it out. So yeah, it's this is a completely different approach so that they could steal space. Here, I'll show back the map. But it's completely stolen.
And so I have a note about why they moved it here. From Dave. He says, the biggest issue that we had, and we were probably solving for, is, if you remember the old attraction, the queen's trying to push the rock down on the dwarves. It falls on her, she screams, gets hit by lightning, and then the show doors open and they lived happily ever after. And everybody was just like, that makes no sense, right? What does that even mean? So obviously they had a problem. So they decided to change this scene because they're trying to tell the movie as it actually was in 1937 versus this kind of bizarre ending where it's just a boulder and then they lived happily ever after. So they moved it here, and they added an animation from the film of the witch, and then it's projected from the movie, but she's not actually pushing a boulder. So there's no boulder here now. Boulder has disappeared.
So I was going to ask you that question because I had seen several POVs, but of course, everybody doesn't look at the stuff that's actually important. They keep the camera fixed straight because they think that's how people's heads actually work when you're riding attractions, but they don't. You should be panning at the things that are important and steady camming them, not just letting them whip by. Anyway, so I couldn't tell if she was trying to push a boulder or not.
Yeah. So she's not. She's just kind of like looking scared and like looking behind her and like trying to escape. So the dwarves are chasing after her. Banishing her is the official story for this. So the dwarves are banishing the witch, and there's projection mapped rain, but there is no boulder or her like
banished witch. Here's a ticket. We're gonna write you a ticket for trying to poison us, or actually successfully poisoning Snow White. But don't do it again.
They make it look so the dwarves are winning in this scene versus her definitely looking like she's winning.
How do they look like they're winning?
Well, they are. So the interesting thing is they use the exact same dwarves, I'm pretty sure, that they had before. Because I looked at these for a long time and I was like, they're the exact same setting as they were. They're the same hand positions and everything. You see, like, look at Doc. He's exactly the same. He's just moved. Like, they moved them around.
Yeah, these are 1,000% the same dwarves.
Mm-hmm. So they just restaged them in a different way, which is why they look scared.
That's what I'm saying is, how do they appear like they're winning? Because they definitely look like, oh no. It doesn't look
because
like
of her animation, she looks scared. That's, I think, the difference. Because they look scared and she looks scared, but she didn't look scared before, and now she does. So I think that is why we get that storytelling. But they still look scared. They don't look like they're terrified of her or like chasing after her. Like, they do look terrified of her. They don't look like they're chasing after her. And that's just because they repurposed the same, sculptures that they had before and just restage them. So there's an interesting thing.
Did Dopey have a candle in the first one?
Yes. Here.
His candle has an animation. Did it always shake?
I don't know.
It shakes in this one. I'm going to try to keep my camera and desk from shaking, but yeah, it like wobbles in his hand.
So the other thing is, right before we get to the final scene, which is what Kirk is showing you here, and they did want to do this kind of like a cinematic long shot of Snow White in her glass coffin with rain and clouds and thunder. That's kind of what you're seeing as you go up here. But I want to mention, if you look to the right, there's one of the funniest things that they changed from Snow White's Scary Adventures is they kept the scary trees, but they like stuffed them with moss in their like eyes and their mouths.
Why?
To like make them blend so they're not scary anymore. They're like covering up their faces with moss. So they blend with the new happy scene that's about to happen. So if you want to see that, just look to your right and you'll see the really kind of interesting stuffed trees as they were in this area. But here is the final scene. Of course, this is now completing Snow White's Enchanted Wish and completing the story of Snow White. This is a key moment in the film that they had to add to tell the story to completion. So Dave says, you see these rains and cloud and thunder, and then suddenly the lights illuminate the room and butterflies take flight. Dave says he kisses her, she wakes up, and as she does that, the clouds break, birds and butterflies fly around, the god rays come down out of the sun, and then hundreds and thousands of twinkle lights light up the entire forest. And then you see there's 50 or 60 animal friends all around, which I actually saw that there was only 36 that they actually added. So I think that might have been an overestimation of that. But they just made this scene like the most glorious moment ever. And it's spectacular.
Very spectacular. The lighting, it illuminates like crazy and everything's twinkling. It's very beautiful. Is this a scrim that they project onto on the front and the back? Because then that gives like depth to the lighting beam that's coming down on Snow White.
I'm pretty sure it is. I haven't looked it up specifically.
It looks a lot like it. I mean, because again, it's in the foreground, so I'm assuming that there's something that's there. Do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
It would make sense.
So just lots and lots and lots of little animals that were sculpted. Remember, they brought back in that original sculptor for Disneyland rides. They brought them back in to resculpt a whole bunch of animals for the scene and for the entire attraction. So you see a lot of them in this particular scene, especially if you look to the left. The right, there's a deer, there's a couple of deer, and then to the left, there's also a group of animals there as well. So lots and lots of animals just everywhere, plus a whole bunch of flowers. There's just a lot of flowers in this scene. And there's even wisteria, I think, hanging up above as well. And then as we turn the corner, the lights move actually down like the vegetation towards this final storybook. And then when the lights hit it, it illuminates the storybook and brings it to life, which is such a fantastic effect. And the storybook itself has actual projected scenes from the movie. So they have Snow White being carried on the left and the dwarves dancing on the right, which was such an emotional moment from this movie. Even back in 1937 when it premiered, everybody, it was such a celebratory, glorious scene of her waking back up and the dwarves going from being grieving to celebrating. So I love that they added that in there. And we go back just a little bit, back to the cottage, because you remember what used to be there. So this is what the scene used to look like going around the corner. You see, this is the same cottage. They kept the cottage. The window's still there, but they put the book right in front of the door where the witch would pop out with the projected apple in her hand so people couldn't steal it. So that is what we went from and what we came to in that one. And the storybook does say, true love's kiss awakens Snow White and the good dwarves danced for joy. So then we go around the corner to the left and we're heading into scene 8, which is the castle in the clouds scene. Snow White is with her animal friends holding some bluebirds. Remember, we talked about bluebirds being important to the plot and also a theme throughout the entire attraction. She also has a purple flowering tree that I was not able to identify to her left, but it looked a little bit similar to the princess flower bush outside, but I don't think they're the same plant. And then to her right is the flowering dogwood, which is a symbol of rebirth and resurrection, which makes sense for Snow White. Then she came back to life. Then you'll also see that the castle in the clouds is projected up on the ceiling up there, which was her wish, right? Because her wish had come true, which is what we see on the storybook after that. Oh, and the prince is there too, but he's kind of the afterthought, right? So yeah. Forever the afterthought.
He is forever the afterthought.
And then the exit is pretty much the same, except the raven has been removed that's on the left, who he used to be perched right there, and he's no longer there, which is kind of sad.
Sadness.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
I liked him.
Absolutely devastating.
Yeah. But beyond that, I think that's it.
The only thing I want to say is I had to go and look, well, what is an actual happily ever after, and what was the ending of the real Grimm story? A lot of it is similar, right?
Yeah.
But I'm going to skip a lot of things, and I'm just going to point out one detail that I thought was outrageous, was that the Snow White and the prince decide the fitting punishment for the witch is to make her put on blazing hot, red hot shoes, like iron shoes, and dance until she collapses and dies.
Dance for us. Yeah, pretty brutal way to go. I have someone in my chat, Kat is asking, did they take the Snow White that used to hold the candle and put her here at the end, or is it new? And looking at these two side by side, I really think it's new. Yeah.
It looks new.
Especially
because, like, look at her dress. Look at her dress. Look at the arm positioning. Yeah, I think it would be too look at the neck structure, and she's looking up to the right. Similar, yes. Same, no.
And her face is really different, too. I think this is one of the new ones they had constructed for this attraction, because if you look at the new one, here I can zoom in up close, like, she looks so different than the one that was on the stairs. Like,
yeah, it's just not the same.
She might even be a different scale, like slightly smaller, because of the way that she's positioned with the little animals, which are also giving her flowers. Look at the little chipmunk is giving her flowers. It just makes me happy. It's a little quail.
Giving her flowers.
But I think that is Snow White's Enchanted Wish and all the changes. There's a lot more changes than I thought there was. I think after this, now we're going to head back to Snow White's Scary Adventures in Walt Disney World next, correct?
Yeah.
Yeah, which I'm guessing will be at least 2 episodes on that one. So it's going to be a big one. Yeah, Kirk agrees. More than that.
At least 2.
So, alrighty. Well, shall we wrap it up?
Let's bite this apple and get out of here.
Well, thank you everybody for joining us for this episode of Distory. We hope you enjoyed visiting the second half of Snow White's Enchanted Wish, finding some of the little skeletons and details and changes that they made. Kirk, do you have any final thoughts here as we wrap up?
I hope you enjoyed learning from Kate all about door knockers, crystal balls, and of course, bitter wood.
And I really appreciated the Tragic Kingdom lyrics that Kirk wove into this episode. So thank you for that. Thank you, everybody, for being with us. We will see you next time to go back to Snow White's Scary Adventures over in Walt Disney World. Have a great night, everybody.
Good night, guys.